we can then proceed. I think that will do, comrades. All that we are asking, comrades, please mute immediately when you join. We will indicate as and when you need to unmute for certain purposes. Comrades, it's now 7:02. Perhaps maybe let's start while other comrades will be joining. Administrators on the platform will also assist me to make sure that comrades they are admitted into the platform so that we can then move. Now, I've already greeted you, comrades, and now let's start. As you know that today we are dealing with a very powerful topic, and I'm saying powerful in the sense that 2025, this season has been declared the year of renewal, and to me, in my understanding, the topic today is very central to the question of renewal as well. So we appreciate that the speaker is on the platform. And for starters, I will therefore take this opportunity and request that the word of welcome be rendered by Comrade Caroline. Comrade Caroline, over to you, leader.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, cadres. A very warm welcome to Comrade Besani, to Ward 5, Tshwane Region, Kinyeleba Masangu branch in Montana. Thank you for accepting our invitation. We just hope today we're going to learn a lot. Thank you so much and welcome.
Thank you, Comrade Caroline. Comrade Caroline, she's a branch treasurer. We appreciated that word of welcome from yourself. Comrades, as you know that the topic today is through the eye of the nettle, and therefore choosing the best cadres to lead the local government. Now, without necessarily, as I've indicated, the speaker is here, we are going to take this opportunity to welcome Comrade Cornelius just to give us a brief introduction of the speaker on the platform. Comrade Cornelius.
Sure, Chair. Thanks. Chair, is it not at this point where we should be starting with the pledge, or should it be after the introduction?
Leader will do that immediately after that.
Thanks, Chair. Good evening, comrades, and welcome, Comrade Sibongile Besani, to Ward 5. Comrades, Sibongile Besani is a member of the National Executive Committee and National Working Committee of the African National Congress. He is also head of presidency at Luthuli House and chairperson of the NEC Subcommittee on Political Education. He grew within the ranks of the movement from branch chairperson of the Youth League to occupying a seat in the highest decision-making body of the ANC. From 1995 to 2002, he was regional secretary of the ANC in the Northern Free State. From 2004 to 2006, he served as deputy provincial secretary of the Free State. He later served as the provincial secretary from July 2007 and June 2012. He served briefly as member of the National Assembly following the 2019 national and provincial elections. He resigned his seat in Parliament when he was appointed head of presidency, which is a full-time position. He was given the responsibility to serve as the interim coordinator of the ANC Youth League between July 2019 and April 2021. Comrade Besani has been a member of the ANC, NEC, and NWC and head of presidency since December 2017. Thanks, Chair. That's the summary.
Okay, thank you very much, Comrade Cornelius, for such a brief intro of the speaker. And I think all of us were clear exactly given the credentials of the comrade who's on the platform. Not necessarily for any glorious reasons, but for us just to make sure that everybody on the platform understands the speaker who's going to speak to us tonight on this particular important subject, as I've already indicated. Now, comrades, is a resolution of the BEC in Kinyabela. Obviously, is a broader decision of the African National Congress that we therefore take this opportunity to make the pledge. And on the platform, I have a deputy chairperson of the Kinyabela Mahlangu branch who will actually lead us in that particular item. Comrade Nyatela.
Good evening, comrades. Thank you for joining the meeting. As the chair has already alluded, we are going to read the pledge so we remind ourselves why did we join the ANC. So without any waste of time, I'm going to ask all of you on the platform to unmute and read your pledge. We've got the pledge on the group. Those who don't have it there, you are going to read from your laptops or cell phone. If you joined with cell phone, you are going to read together with me.
You will read and then we will come after you.
Okay, that's fine. So we are going, all of you please unmute. I'm going to read sentence by sentence, then you follow me. Maybe that way it's orderly. When I say I, Nyatela, you'll say I, your own name. I'm starting. Okay. Please unmute those people that are talking behind the mics. Mute them.
Comrade, can you be silent now? It's a silent moment.
Okay.
Okay, the administrator, please don't welcome anybody for now. Why for these purposes? We will welcome them later on. Please don't let anybody in now.
Okay.
Comrade
Okay, we are going
you can
to start.
proceed.
Everyone will say their own names and I say my name. Nyatela. Oh God. Please.
Comrades, please be silent.
Okay. I, Nyatela, solemnly declare that I will abide by the aims and objectives of the African National
Congress as
set out in the
Constitution, the Freedom Charter,
and other duly adopted
positions.
That I am
joining the organization
voluntarily
and without
motive
motives of
material
advantage. or
or
personal
personal
gain.
gain.
That I
I
agree to
agree to
respect the
respect the
constitution
Constitution
and the
and
structure
structures
and to work
and to
as a
work as
loyal
a
member
loyal
of the
member of the
organization.
organization.
That I will
and I
place
will
my
Place my
energies
energies
and
and
skills at the
at the
disposal of
disposal
the
of the
organization
out
organization
to
tasks
carry out
given to
and carry
tasks
me.
out
given to
tasks
me.
given to me.
And
That
I
I will
will
work
That
work
I will
towards
work
hard
making
to
the
towards
keep the
making the
an
ANC
ANC
even
an
more
more
effective
effective
instrument of
instrument of
liberation
liberation
in
liberation
the hands
in the
of
in
the
the
hands of
hands
people,
the
of the
people,
and
people,
that I will
and that I
defend
will
the
defend the
unity
and
unity
the integrity of the
of the
organization,
integrity
its
of the
principles,
organization
organization
and its
and its
principles,
combat any
principles,
combat
tendency
and
toward
combat any
tendencies
disruption and
tendency
towards
towards
factionalism.
disruptions and
disruption,
factionalism.
factionalism.
Action and section, Mali.
Amandla,
Thank, thank you, comrades. We will do better next time.
Away to
away
away
to
Mandla.
Awethu, Comrade Sibongile.
Okay, the administrators, you can then welcome those who are in the waiting room, and therefore we are going to start. Comrade Besani is here, and therefore the intro has already been administered. And at this point in time, comrades, it's now 7:12, and I'm going to take this opportunity to give to the guest speaker and to take us through the topic. Comrade Besani, I'm being advised that maybe for introductory reasons, you can just show your face a bit, but later on you can then mute your video for the purposes of network stability and so forth.
Okay, thank you very much, Comrade Stan. Greetings.
Yeah, it's over to you for now. And then you have, I'm not sure how long you will need, comrade, but I think 30 to 45 minutes will be enough.
Yeah.
But where there is a need, I still make determination in terms of if you might need some few minutes. But I think let's play around that time. Thank you very much. Over to you. Everybody now, please mute. Everybody mute, please. It's only going to be Comrade Besani on the platform.
Thank you very much, comrades, and greetings to everybody. Let me acknowledge the presence of the regional convener, Comrade Bonzo Mudisi. I've seen him here. And also send a word of gratitude to all structures of the organizations that are here, in particular the Branch Executive Committee of Ward 5. And thank you for this privilege and honor for me to share with you views on a topic that is very important for all of us, especially in the context of our job, our task, our responsibility of organizational renewal. So I want to thank you for the invite. It's quite an honor. I feel very much privileged. I would like to really start at a point where we understand the moment. You know that a few days ago, we embarked on a roll call. And that roll call, the African National Congress provided a mandate on how we should tackle the current period. And I think we should take that roll call quite seriously. Even today, the president will be on television to conducting an interview. So I'm saying it's quite a very important, that roll call was quite important because all deployees of the ANC through length and breadth of the country, especially at local government level and the regions, were part and parcel of that roll call. That tells you that the ANC takes seriously the fact that we need to continue to defend the revolution. But we meet at the time when the world is going through turmoil. It is going through a lot because our country is being taken to task, especially the ANC, for its position globally, especially of being on the side of the poor, the side of the most vulnerable, speaking against the genocide by the Israeli government. And we know that the United States government has issued some executives against the country, in particular the ANC leadership. But it is also a period when there are some wars throughout the world, whether you talk Gaza, whether you talk Ukraine-Russian war, whether you talk the attack on Iran. So these are changes or incidents that require much reflection, especially for an organization like ours. Even we live in a period where the advent of a unipolar world has actually ended. So, and then the ushering of a multipolar world is on course. And these are dynamics in the world that require quite extensive reflection on our side. But back home here, the economy remains under pressure, it's underperforming. Back home here, our people remain unemployed. Back home here, poverty is also intact. But despite all these challenges, we remain committed to resolving, to grappling with these challenges in earnest. That is why in fighting poverty for the past 30 years, we have embarked on various programs to ensure that at least our people don't go home hungry. It's a battle that we continue to do. We have embarked on various programs, economically and otherwise, to moderate this persistent economic underperformance. So, and we are now on the eve of the National General Council, which is a very important moment for the ANC, especially considering the fact that when there was COVID-19, we couldn't meet and reflect on the state of organization and the progress we have made. So it's quite a very important moment. So these discussions, they take place in that context. And of course, that context cannot be left without stating that we have been taken through an election process that saw us getting 40%, just 40%. So we have lost the majority. And now we're facing local government elections. And these are things that are confronting us, realities that confront us. And whatever we do from now onwards, when we deal with a document, when we deal with this topic of through the eye of the needle, we need to really take stock of what we're confronted with. So the situation is quite dire, and we need to really up our ante in rebuilding the organization. Comrades, the second issue is directly related to the topic itself. I think we know the history of this document through the eye of the needle. It was adopted around 2001 at a point when the ANC just came from the National Conference, not National Conference, 2000 in Port Elizabeth, the NGC. So post that NGC, through the eye of the needle was conceived and adopted. So there's something that this document states quite profoundly, especially if you go to paragraph 5 to 10 of that document, because that's where I want to start also when I reflect on the document. It speaks to the challenges that the organization was confronting at that time. And I'm starting there so that we can also reflect as to whether the situation has changed or not. And in that paragraph, the challenges that are confronted by the organization are more of the organizational challenges. The document clearly states that on that paragraph 5 to 10, that there's lack of active branches, if you read it. Now, what do we mean by that? If we state that in 2001 that the lack of active branches, basically functionality of the structure of the ANC is not confined to holding meetings, but is steeped into the level of activism that should be in place. So that context is important. So it was conceived within the context of observing that there's a lack of active branches. Now, I want to challenge you to reflect whether we still have active branches and what do we mean by those active branches, because that is the basis on which this document was also conceived. And another issue that was noted, that is stated in the document, was that one of the organizational challenges that we faced then was that the alliance is not united. Now, I put it to you again to reflect whether the alliance is united today. And I think you would agree with me that, in fact, things have gotten worse to a point that the special Congress of the South African Communist Party has decided to to contest in earnest now the local government elections next year. You'd remember that the party some time back registered with the IEC. So, and then although it didn't contest, but this time around, it is really on a drive to contest for elections. And it has even gone further. In some areas, it has gone further to contest the by-elections. So we have that challenge. And you can also look at the state of the trade union movement, COSATU specifically. We know that some time back, NUMSA moved away from COSATU, it split, and then COSATU is not in the strongest position it used to have. And it is predominantly constituted by public service trade unions, which is not a bad thing, but it is short of being involved. It's not very active in the industrial environment. So that's the point we're trying to make. And then the state of SANCO. SANCO has been going through many challenges in the last 10 or so years. At some stage, we had 2 SANCOs and so on. That situation may be a little bit different now, but that does not suggest that SANCO is as strong as expected. So the alliance, the unity of the alliance, is still something that I think we decry. And even the state of the ANC itself, we know that it's not an inspiring one. Now, in that paragraph, there's reference to the need to improve the state capacity. So the issue of state capacity is not something that started 2 years, 3 years ago. Even already in 2001, this document was saying we need to improve state capacity. In 2001, this document, through the eye of the needle, was already decrying corruption. In 2001, through the eye of the needle was already decrying the aspect of counter-revolution and the fact that there was internal subversion. I'm stating this so that this is part of, you understand that this is part of the context within which this document was conceived. Now the question would be, are these challenges still there that are stated in paragraph 5 to paragraph 10 of the document through the eye of the needle? I think you would agree with me that these challenges are still there. And now it means we have not done much to really turn the corner, to a point that in 2016, around 2017 rather, in 2017, we reflected on the challenges rather of the organization. And these challenges, we reflected on them through a document called the diagnostic report. We started with it at the NGC, if I'm not mistaken, yeah, the diagnostic report. Now, and that diagnostic report was very elaborate on the challenges that are faced by the organization. And if you were to look at that diagnostic report, it was somehow corroborating, confirming the challenges stated in the paragraph 5 to 10 of Through the Eye of the Needle. It was being more elaborate, but confirming those challenges in 2017. Now, that shows you that we've been going through a lot. We were, like in that diagnostic report, you will see that the organization was accused of social distance, corruption, nepotism, arrogance, elitism, factionalism, manipulating organizational processes, abusing state power, putting self-interest above the people, even the strongest ANC supporters. That's what that report was saying. The ANC strongest supporters were even agreeing to what is called the sins of incumbency, which were deeply entrenched. And many organizations and thought leaders were becoming more of critics of the ANC and its leadership, and were beginning to lose much of our influence and appeal among students, young intellectuals, and Black middle class. So this is what the diagnostic report was saying in 2017, which was part of our document. Even these things were echoed in the strategy and tactics of 2017, which is still relevant today, because you would remember that when we went to 2022 National Conference, we didn't change the strategy and tactics document. So I'm talking about Through the Eye of the Needle, the diagnostic report, even the strategy and tactics document of 2017, which was corroborating what we already spoke about in 2001. Now, comrades, the point here again is that those challenges are still prevalent. And the basic question that we're confronted with is, from time to time, is what is to be done? And if we're to understand what is to be done, because Through the Eye of the Needle tells us about these challenges organizationally. Now, I'm narrowing my input to the organization, because I move from the premise that once we have a strong organization, we're able to provide societal leadership. So I think that is what, so people must not say, no, I ignored society, the challenges that we have in general and so on. It's just that I'm confining myself to the organization based on the premise that, or the logic that once the organization is strong, it is active, it is able to deal with those challenges, then it will be able to be in a position to provide societal leadership and to provide to fundamental change to society, or to even to go as far as say to make a better life for all, as that's the injunction of 1994 when we took over state power. Now, now on the issue of what is to be done, I want to quote what Strategy and Tactics of 2017 really said to us, or directed us to do. It says, and I quote, that the ANC should, open quotes, show up its own capacity, honestly identify and correct its weaknesses, and revitalize its public image, close quote. So that's what Strategy and Tactics, having observed the challenges that we go through, we are actually directed to show up our own capacity and honestly identify and correct weaknesses and revitalize our public image. That is the directive. That is the clarion call from our own document again, that this is what we're required to do. Now, but I also like the quotation from Through the Eye of the Needle. I think it's on paragraph 2. Having observed all these challenges that I spoke about, Through the Eye of the Needle also provides what I would call a directive, a guide on what is it that we should do, having observed all these organizational challenges. It says, and I'm going to quote it directly, I'm using organizational literature, especially these ones, so that there is appreciation that we know what is it that we're supposed to do. And the bigger question that we must ask ourselves is why, having all the knowledge of what is the problem and what is it that we're supposed to do, why are we not doing? You know, why are we not practicing all these things that we know that can help the ANC? So Through the Eye of the Needle says, open quotes, it says, though, and that is paragraph 2, it says, those in leadership positions should unite and guide the movement at the head of the process of change. And together, they should reflect continuity of a revolutionary tradition and renewal which sustains the movement in the long term, close quotes. This is a very interesting extract because it calls upon leadership to unite and guide the movement in the process of change. I always say to comrades that there is a difference between a leader and leadership. Leadership is not a position. Leadership is behavior, it's conduct. And it is not just conduct, it is conduct, behavior that is premised on principles. It's important that we understand that. So in other words, there are people who are in leadership positions, but they have no leadership. Because their conduct, their behavior, it is outside principles. So we must always differentiate between a leader and leadership, because there are leaders who do not have leadership. And there are people who are who are not in leadership positions, but who have leadership. So leadership is behavior, in short. Now, not strategy and tactics, Through the Eye of the Needle reminds us that if we are to behave in such a way that we unite and guide the process of change, then we're exercising leadership. So those in leadership positions are expected to exercise leadership. And how are they expected to do so? They're expected to do so by uniting and guiding the process of change. That's what Through the Eye of the Needle says in 2001. And I like this extra because it goes further to say, together, those in leadership positions, they should reflect continuity of a revolutionary tradition and renewal, which sustains the movement in the long term. Now, this notion of renewal is not something new. It's not new. Renewal in the organization is not new. 2001, we were already saying that we need renewal which must sustain the movement in the long term. So Through the Eye of the Needle teaches us that if we embark on the process of renewal, we will be able to sustain the organization in the long term. But if we don't so, the implication is that if we don't do so, this organization will not be sustained in the long term. That is why in the current period we say we need to renew the organization because we face existential crisis. So leadership is what we need. And when we say we need leadership, it means we need leaders who can exercise leadership, who can behave in a particular way. And part of that behavior, part of that conduct is being that of unity, unifying the organization so that you are in a position to guide the process of change. Renewal must be guided. Renewal must be guided. It can't happen willy-nilly. It has to be guided. So these are two. This is an extract from Through the Eye of the Needle that I think if we are to understand the role of leadership, we must also reflect on this paragraph 2 of Through the Eye of the Needle. Now, Strategy and Tactics of 2017 is also very instructive about the renewal process. It's very instructive because it says that we must, in the current period, renewal of the organization for it to exercise societal leadership in the changing environment. We need renewal. And the consolidation of democracy and speeding up of programs of fundamental transformation to attain shared prosperity and social justice and human solidarity. Like I said earlier on, that Through the Eye of the Needle is instructive in that it says you need leadership in order to unite and lead the process of change. So, and I said leadership, its conduct, its behavior that is premised on principle. So once you conduct yourself based on the principles, then you are able to exercise ethical leadership, because ethical leadership is behavior that is premised on principles. So one of the principles that we must never compromise, comrades, so that we can lead the process of change, so that we can exercise leadership. One of those principles is unity. We always talk about unity. In fact, unity is the founding principle of the ANC. That is why in 1985, the letter of Madiba leaked to the Kwabe Consultative Conference. And part of that letter stated that unity is the solid rock upon which the ANC was formed. Now, if Madiba says unity is the solid rock upon which the ANC was formed, clearly unity is the foundation of the ANC. Now, if the ANC is not united, then we're not standing on solid ground. If we perpetuate factions, if we perpetuate divisions amongst ourselves, then this organization is not on solid ground. So unity is a foundational principle of the ANC. And to exercise leadership, we need to demonstrate this principle. We need to demonstrate this principle of unity. It has to take precedence. So that's what Through the Eye of the Needle instructs us to do. That's what Strategy and Tactics instructs us to do. That's what all our documents instruct us to do, that the foundational principle is unity. And even Madiba shows that. Ben Turok, I always like to quote, Ben Turok says, unity is the indispensable condition to execute a liberation struggle. I'm paraphrasing him, but he says unity is an indispensable condition to execute the liberation struggle. So in other words, we can never liberate our people when we are not united. That's what Ben Turok says. Harun Aziz goes further to say unity is the state of political readiness to execute the national democratic revolution. It's a state of political readiness. Now, if you are ready to execute the NDR, you've got to ensure that the principle of unity is not compromised. Those who operate in this organization outside this principle, they are not in a state of political readiness to advance the NDR. Those who function outside unity, this principle of the organization unity, they are not understanding the indispensability of that principle. Therefore, they cannot execute the liberation struggle. So when we are called upon for unity and so on, we're not called upon to a principle of saying we must agree on everything. No. We are called upon to understand the importance, the centrality of executing the liberation struggle. That tool, that principle is unity. So we're not called upon to agree on everything. We're called upon to exercise leadership, to be matured enough to navigate the maze of differences, to navigate the nuances, the dynamism of differing, to be matured enough to understand that we will have differences, but we don't lose the bigger picture. So that is one area that I felt that I needed to give emphasis to. There are other principles of the organization, non-racialism, non-sexism, and so on. Those are the principles that we must uphold. And I always say, if you want to understand when we say something is a principle, we simply mean that thing is the fundamental truth of the organization. It is something that you can't do without. It is the non-negotiable of the organization. That is a principle. When we say unity is a principle of the organization, we simply mean that unity is a non-negotiable. When we say non-sexism is a principle of the organization, we simply mean that it is non-negotiable. It is the DNA. So when we act factionally, we're acting outside our DNA. We're acting outside our genetic mode. In fact, the pledge that we read when we started this meeting, towards the end says, we must defend unity and principle of this organization. You know, that's what it says. And when it ends, towards the end, it says, we must combat factionalism and disruption. So unity must be defended. Principle must be defended. Factionalism, disruptions in the organization, they must be combated. Those are two different things. That's what we have been called to. So when we seek factionalism, we shouldn't tolerate it, and we shouldn't run away from it. We must combat it. We must fight it. We don't need an organization that is disruptive. We don't need an organization that is factional. We need what we must defend at all material times. That is what we have pledged. Even today we read that pledge. If you read it, we must defend the principle. We must defend unity of the organization. So unity is very critical. So the strategy and tactics through the eye of the needle directs us to behave in a particular way. So the question is of what is to be done is located in our own literature. I'm only using these two documents. Now, the importance, therefore, is what is it that we have said we should do? We have said, through the eye of the needle identifies this solution, these challenges. Even the diagnostic report identifies these challenges. Even the strategy and tactics identify all these challenges. But these documents, all of them, even at conferences, our resolutions, they identify all these challenges that I've spoken about. But we don't stop there. We've said, as a matter of principle and practice, the solution lies in renewal of the organization. That is why, through the eye of the needle says, renewal will sustain this movement in a long term. And I like what this document says. It does not say renewal will sustain the organization. It says renewal will sustain the movement. So in other words, renewal is not only confined to the organization, the ANC. It is also extended to to our alliance partners. That is why in paragraph 5 to 10, one of the challenges we have is that there's no unity in the alliance. But the solution is organizational renewal. Now, comrades, when we dealt with organizational renewal at conference, we created a framework. If you go to conference resolutions, there's a framework for organizational renewal. At the 55th conference, and maybe before I get to that, just those who have been into presentations that I've made, I always say that we must also learn from what is called, from those who are involved in organizational development, the practitioners there. Those who are involved in change management, the practitioners in change management. They say that for any organization to embark on a genuine, productive change, real change, it has to renew itself at two levels. The first level, or the first level, is the hardware. All organizations, they have their own hardware. Renewal must take place at the hardware level. And it must also take place at the software level. Now, what is this hardware level? For an organization like the ANC, the hardware of the organization is membership. Renewal must take place at the membership level. Because a member is the hardware of an organization.
A dice.
Another element of hardware of the organization is the membership system. The programs of the organization, that is the hardware. The constitution of the organization, that is the hardware. So when we say the solution is renewal, it means renewal must take place at a hardware level in terms of membership. Members, membership system, our programs, the constitution. So when you focus on those things, you must know you are focusing on the hardware of the organization. Let me make an example. For an example, if we say the hardware of a member, the hardware, which is a member, it means it is expected that we must have members as the organization. That's why from time to time we look at our quantitative strength, our numerical strength. Once we look at the numerical strength, we renew membership, our membership of the organization. We're dealing with the hardware of the organization. You know, in 1952, the ANC embarked on a defiance campaign. That is hardware. On that defiance campaign, when it started, the ANC had about 8,000 members. And the defiance campaign was stopped in 1953. And during the campaign of the defiance campaign, 8,000 members were arrested. So remember I said ANC had about 8,000 members, and during the defiance campaign, 8,000 people were arrested. That means the hardware was involved in the program of action in the defiance campaign. It was involved to a point that the whole membership got arrested. I'm just using the logic, basic logic. So here you had members of the organization. They were not just members because they have membership forms, but they were actively involved in the programs of the organization. And you know what happened? At that end of that campaign, the membership of the ANC moved from 8,000 to 100,000. So you had active members of the organization who were prepared to defend, to be through activism, to defend their organization. And that inspired many people throughout the country. Hence, the organization grew in numbers. The ANC grew. It registered from 8,000 to 100,000 members. Now, in our situation, there are branches that have 1,000 members, 400 members. But when there is a program of action, those members are not there. But when you look the verification, the so on, but those members, they are there. But in terms of activism, they are not there. Now, when we say we need renewal at a hardware level, we need renewal at the membership level where members are actively involved in the activities of the organization. Then in that way, the hardware is being renewed. Just one example. But as I said, you don't only renew at a hardware level, you also renew at a software level. Now, when we talk about software of the ANC, we're talking about the values, the principles, the cultures of the organization. A member, to have more members, it is good. That is the hardware. But that member must espouse, must uphold the principles and values. So it's a dialectical relationship. So renewal must happen in that way. You must not just have members. Those members at the same point, they must uphold, espouse the values and principles of the organization. Because sometimes you have members, they don't uphold the principle of unity. That's why we have challenges, because the hardware does not function in tandem with the software. So renewal takes place at that level. When the ANC is accused of, members of the ANC are accused of corruption, then they're accused of unethical behavior. That is the software. So we're being attacked at a software level. We're also being attacked at a hardware level. So principles of the organization, the values of the organization are very, very important. So renewal must take place at those levels. So when we talk about renewal, we're not only talking about a membership system. We're saying, yes, we need members, but those members must espouse our principles. They must espouse our values. They must espouse our traditions and cultures. The ANC is 113 years. An organization as old as the ANC is bound to have unwritten rules, is bound to have certain cultures, it's bound to have certain traditions that are not in the constitution. It's always important to espouse the principles, the values of the organization. Now, the very same document, Through the Eye of the Needle, gives us, is instructive on what is called principles of organizational democracy. It's very instructive. So if you look at Through the Eye of the Needle, it will tell you about principles of organizational democracy. And here it refers to the software of the organization. You know, we need to master, we need to uphold principles of organizational democracy. I think it's paragraph 18 to 24. So once we deal with principles of any organization, once you deal with this principle of unity, it means members have the software. There are times when members of our organization sort of veer away from the software of the organization. So we want numbers, but those numbers must have quality. So the software is about the character, it's about values, principles, the cultures of the organization. So that's the levels at which a renewal has to take place. Now, Comrade Stan, you'll tell me if I've crossed 30 minutes or 45 minutes so that we have more time to discuss. Now, I was saying...
Yeah, you have 2 minutes.
Pardon?
You have 2 minutes.
Thanks. Now, just to close, because I think we have to discuss. I was saying we went to a conference and that conference came up with the framework for renewal. And I'll just state elements of the framework for renewal. And I know that when you go to the base document of the NGC, there are pillars of renewal. And those pillars are within the context of the pillars of the strategy and tactics. There are 5 pillars of strategy and tactics in the current period. But now I just want to just state the elements of this framework. We say one of those elements is building a new cadre of renewal. One of the elements of renewal is the role of branches. One of the elements of renewal is non-sexist and non-racial movement. We also said there must be leadership and renewal. How does leadership relate to renewal? I think I've made a point to that, reference to that rather. So that we must build an outward-looking African National Congress so that we don't preoccupy ourselves, obsess with ourselves. Because if we do so, we run the risk of leaving the people behind. The other element of renewal is leadership collectives. So those are in the resolution. I just wanted to state some of the areas in the framework of renewal. So yeah, I'll talk about the principles of organizational renewal as stated in this document Through the Eye of the Needle later during the discussion. Thank you very much, comrades. We can start discussing. Thank you, Comrade Stan. I want to end there, to pause there for a moment.
Okay, thank you, Comrade Besani. The presentation is highly appreciated. And equally, I would like to also welcome the leadership, of course, of the region that is present here, and comrades from Northwest. I saw the comrades, they say they're also in Trebeja. But also, comrades, we are told that the chairperson has to rush to another meeting, Comrade Eugene Modise. We appreciate that, but we still have Comrade Dipuo Moroba here from the regional leadership. Thank you, Comrade Dipuo, for your presence. Now, comrades, as you know, that the process is that we're going to ask 30-second questions, comments, and therefore, and also let's have a discussions, and therefore we will then start taking hands at the moment. I see there is a hand already. Is Comrade George. Comrade Bonga, you'll also help me to see the hands that perhaps I may not see. I see Comrade George, the first speaker, George Magoma. Yeah, that is the only hand that I'm seeing now. I see also Comrade Siabelo. I also see, where is the other hand? Okay, maybe let's take these two hands for now, comrades. Comrade George Shayabab.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, comrades, and good evening. Today I'm in a very good mood. I don't know why, and perhaps it's because yesterday I logged in this group, and it was premature until such time I was advised by Comrade Tanana Munama that the session is today. I was looking with keen interest to today's engagement with Comrade Besani, and greetings, Comrade Besani. Chair, I greet you in context. The context being the anniversary of Comrade Steve Biko, the anniversary of the 1984 3rd September Val uprising, and the 70th anniversary of the Freedom Charter. That is the context amongst many others. Chair, Comrade Besani spoke about SENCO as one of the organs of civil society that played a very pivotal role in the liberation struggle and which continue to exist today. But history reminds us, Chair, that in 1991, when in the aftermath of the unbanning of the liberation movement, we closed the United Democratic Front because it had played its role in the absence of the ANC when P.W. Porter declared the state of emergency and banned political organizations. Today, Chair, SANCO exists along an ANC branch. And I don't know why we did not treat SANCO the same way we treated the UDF in 1991 for a number of reasons. One, I'm the chairperson of the ANC in my branch. I once invited the SACP. I once invited SANCO on behalf of the branch to a meeting. The same comrades I'm serving within the PEC came wearing SANCO caps, wearing SAC caps, and I asked myself, SANCO members are members of the ANC, SACP members are members of the ANC. But that creates an element of opportunism for a number of reasons. SANCO has assumed a role of a revolutionary watchdog over the African National Congress. As we approach the 2026 local government election, you will see comrades jumping ship from the ANC to SANCO on the basis that they failed to be on the ANC list of candidates. Now, my question to Comrade Besani is that, what is the relevance of SANCO existing alongside the ANC branch when the ANC is seen as the voice of the people, is seen as the leadership of the society, and how does it then manage to address the contradictions that are there on the ground in view of the existence of SANCO as another organ of the civil society? There are some frictions there and contradictions that need to be managed. Number two, which is my last issue, and then I'll comment on something else. The national dialogue. Comrade Chair, we agreed on the national dialogue as the African National Congress. We agreed on the national dialogue as a nation based on a common vision, based on common purpose. But on the eve of the national dialogue, some people wanted to rule from the grave. If you look at the composition and the leadership of all these legacy foundations, the Ahmed Katrada, who was the leader of the ANC, Thabo Mbeki, the leader of the ANC, yeah, those leaders, some of them are still alive and others are being led on their behalf. But how do you then abandon ship when you've been educated by the Freedom Charter, when you've been educated by the Harare Declaration and the power of dialogue, on the power of negotiations to carve the future of this particular country, and then in the 11th hour, you abandon ship to say that no, the national dialogue should be civil society led. It can be. But that is the discussion that we need to navigate. But I'm not happy for people who say we are representing legacy foundations and the ANC must just step aside, government must just step aside. We can't be rudderless. We can't have a dialogue that is amorphous. Comrade Besani and other comrades here on the platform will assist me to navigate this. My comment, Chair, on the issue of local government, the state of local government. And fortunately, this discussion is hosted by Tshwane. Tshwane, that is at the epicenter of a problem of water, Amanskral. You go to Coronationville, you go to Westbury, you traverse each and every part of the country, there's a problem of water. And when people protest peacefully, Chair, you issue them with rubber bullets and tear gas, and we can't be drinking that. Those particular people are not necessarily angry. They are standing up to say, the ANC, please help us, we are thirsty. And instead, in a democracy, you remind us of the period of 1984, which I've referred to, when we stood against ban to local administration of P.W. Porter. We were shot and killed. And you expect us, Chair, that in 2026, when we say that invest in people, fix local government, people will just come and vote for the ANC when you are not giving them water. That is the context, Chair, and I'm raising this thing within the political education and the battle of ideas, and we will engage and discuss. Thank you very much.
George, let's just share the time, comrades, and just so that everybody could have the opportunity to ask questions and comment. I do not want to say that before, but we normally have 3 minutes and 3 minutes just like that to share the time. But let's try to do that, comrades, so that we can have a discussions and can also give a speaker to speak. Now, what is going to speak? I already have other names. Kaunda, you'll also talk, and also Comrade Steenkamp. I have noted you as well. So now let's go to Comrade Siabelo, Shayababa. And before that, I also welcome comrades from City of Joburg and also comrade from Limpopo. You are also welcome. Thank you for joining. Let's go, Comrade Siabelo.
No, thanks, Chair. No, good evening, comrades, and let me also join comrades to welcome the presentation by Comrade Besani. There are a few inputs that I would want to make. Either they will come up as a question or as an input. My name is Wabile. My surname is Siabelo. I'm the branch secretary of the ANC in Ward 14 in the Northwest Province, in the area of Nakamdremalem. Chair, I've been listening Comrade Besani saying a lot of things. But the reality of the situation is that in terms of organizational renewal, if you read it in its context, the word factionalism is mentioned in one slide only. We cannot talk about organizational renewal if we are not addressing the effects and the danger and the power that factionalism is doing in our organization. If you read organizational renewal in the problem statement, it talks about the erosion of discipline in the ANC and the pursuit of money. The reality of the situation is that all our documents, you can name from which conference, they've got resolutions which are correct. It has never been implemented. The implementation has remained the greatest weaknesses in the ANC in addressing the current political challenge we find ourselves in. Because in as far as the organizational renewal is concerned, it talks about the change in the material condition post-1994. The reality of the situation is that comrades are leaving the ANC not because they want to, but they are leaving the ANC because the ANC in paper, it's saying is the leader of society, but the ANC is not leading society. In fact, the society is leading the ANC. Because you find yourself where there are leaders, councillors, and whoever, you name them, branch, REC members. How does it happen that I'm an REC member, but I lose a voting station where I stay? It means the ANC is not in charge. It means people don't believe in my ability to lead them as a leader of society. Now, the challenge that we are facing, it's more complex and more difficult. I mean, the propaganda machinery in the ANC is dead, and propaganda remains part of the political activism. People have left the ANC not because in fact, the ANC has done exceptionally well since 1994. If you look what the ANC has done, the systems that they have put in place are immense. They are unmatched. There's no party that can match what the ANC has done. But listen to what Mkonazi said yesterday and today. Where does it leave the ANC? Listen to what the president said when the president elevated the DA above the ANC. When the president was not communicating to ANC councillors in that meeting. In my view, the president was talking to the people of South Africa, because he was live on television when he said the DA-run municipalities run better than the ANC. That on its own has started to become a campaign of the DA against the ANC post-1990, post the coming elections. Secondly, Chair, let's talk about the ANC today. The ANC leadership that we have, starting from the president till to the last branch member. We have the leadership that are capable, that can match any challenge, that can confront any situation we find ourselves in. But where are they? They are not there. You go on the street, you will not find the ANC. You go on social clubs, you will not find the ANC. Once a person got elected, he moved out of the area that elected him into office, and he move and sit in suburbs and stay in suburbs. You come back during the elections, you want people to continue to behave as if the situation is normal. It's not. We are 30 years in democracy. We are still fighting land restitution. The land has not been restored. I'm one of the claimants of the land since 1996 on the 9th of July till today. I'm still fighting to have pieces of my land. It has not been returned. And from the kingdom where we come from and the royal family, we are still asking ourselves, are we going to have our land or not? 30 years into democracy, we are still fighting service delivery challenges. I mean, Comrade Besani, we have every power of the state to transform and change the life of our people. But we're not doing that. I don't really understand why the ESCOM tariffs are so high. Why do we pay so much for electricity in South Africa? Why do we pay so much for just data in South Africa, in our own country? What is the role of our government in ensuring that a better life for all is achievable? Lastly, Chair, you know, there's a belief in my culture that says the fish rot from the head. When you catch a fish, you firstly cut the head so that it does not contaminate the entire body. The erosion of discipline, the misbehavior, all the mess, the manipulation of processes in the organization has the hands of leadership inside it. There's no branch that can become or have its process manipulated if the leadership is not involved. There's no institution of government where there can be corrupt transactions if our leadership are not fingered. The leadership is solely responsible for the mess we find ourselves in. We campaign for the ANC. Northwest is one of the provinces where we are not sharing, where we won our province outrightly. But do you want to tell me that there's no board who qualifies in the Northwest province to be considered for cabinet post? I mean, we've got comrades such as Tandimuti, say you can name them. But if you look at the representation of the cabinet from other provinces, especially provinces that won outright, you've got sizable numbers of comrades that are featuring in cabinet. And you are saying democracy cannot include representation. Why should we continue to believe that the national executive represent us when we have nobody that comes from our province that features in that cabinet? And we cannot keep quiet when these things continue to happen. It is not factionalism, but it's ignorance of the leadership, because geographical spread is not considered. You go into parastatals, you go into state enterprise, you will not find comrades of Northwest, despite the fact that they have demonstrated their capacity, they have demonstrated their love of the ANC, but they are not considered. I don't know if it's not factionalism, I don't know what to call it. Chair. These are my few conclusive remarks, my leader. Thanks.
Okay, Comrade Kaunda.
Thanks. Thank you, Comrade Chair. Comrades have done me a favor by welcoming the submission made by Comrade Besani. Mine will be 2 questions. I'm not going to take a minute. Comrade Stan,
please.
Through you, Comrade Besani should assist us here. He's running a very critical and important subcommittee. Now, I'm asking this question: will we ever be able to correctly implement the renewal program in terms of the foundational course without us aligning the Constitution? What influences me to ask this question, Comrade has just said it now, that we have challenges from the branches, we have challenges from the regions, we have challenges from the province to the national office of comrades, those who misbehave and influence wrong characteristic of comrades within the branches in terms of discipline. Now, there is no repercussions for comrades who misbehave. That's why we are having these current material conditions that are dictating to us on how to run the branches. That's why we have non-existent or non-functional branches, because of the hands that are coming from the upper structures. So I'm raising that with a very serious concern. I'm part of the facilitators of the program of the foundational course in Johannesburg region. You pass from one branch to the other. When you are in that branch, this branch has got the BBGM has collapsed. It's a BGM has collapsed. But you foundationally inducted those comrades. Now, without us reconfiguring or realigning or adjusting the constitution, will we ever be able to sustain the current material conditions? Thank you.
Thank you, Comrade Steenkamp. Short and precise.
Thank you, Chair. Let me start first by acknowledging the presentation by Comrade Besani. Comrade Besani, I've got only 2 points, which are just clarity-seeking questions. One is, from your submission, you mentioned the alliance partners and activism of them and the impact in the programs of the organization. My apologies. Now, I'm asking about the Communist Party. The SACP has declared to contest the organization. And previously, when you were in my region, by the way, Eastern Camp at Sibongile, Gauteng Province, acting regional organizer. I'm asking the question of what is our approach in line with the question that comes amongst comrades and amongst community members, which are supporters of the organization, to say the SACP is contesting the election. Automatically, they are becoming the opposition to us. What is our approach? How do we behave? Are we accommodating them? Are we showing them our hands away from us? Or because we don't have that kind of clarity. You mentioned while you were here at our general regional meeting last month. So we don't have that kind of answer to go down to the ground and answer the question. That's one. And I closed. Now, the second one is the language that comes from especially leaders within the organization that is forever talking the ANC failing, the ANC not doing well, and is losing power, or is no longer have the influence within the community to lead it as the leader of society. Now, when we check the by-election that we had, let's say in calculation in my region, in all the by-election we had, we lost one, and all of them, we took them. Some say we must look at the margin. How do we came victorious within those by-elections? And does not want to recognize the fact that even the number or the margin has dropped from the previous years. Can't we see that as the loyal members or voters that instead of voting for the opposition, they decided to abstain? So those are my 2 questions that I need clarity on. One is that one I've related on the SACP, and the second one, which is this one, what is happening or what is the clarification that needs to at least advise or guide us towards the leadership that is, especially when it's time of fertilizing the ground, seeing the ANC down, seeing the ANC losing power, but eventually when there is by-election somewhere, we took those by-election. So if I can get clarity on that, our approach, what is it and how do we move forward? Thanks very much, Chair.
Thank you, Comrade Steenkamp. I'll take the 5th hand, and therefore from there I'll give to Comrade Besani to respond, and then we'll come back for the second round of the other 3 names, which is Lucky Bukawa, Comrade Emmanuel, Comrade Machaga. Comrade Sukhobela Shaya, then Comrade Besani will respond.
Good evening, comrades. Thank you very much. Hey, I was not going to raise any issue myself, but I think I'm inclined to respond, especially when the president is being criticized for having said what he said at the roll call meeting with the ANC councillors. You know, people might have actually not understood what the president said, the gist of what the president actually said. There are those who might genuinely be quoting the president, you know, out of context due to limited understanding of the issues at stake, while others are actually just engaged in dirty politicking because they are deliberately twisting the facts to mislead and confuse others, especially the gullible ones. And there is indeed nothing to learn from the DA in as far as service delivery is concerned. And that is not even what the president said. Context is very, very, very much important. The president was specific in what he said and meant, but many, you know, decide to quote him out of context and misrepresent him and what he meant. You know, he might be anything that people want him to be, but I think we need to give the president some credit. You know, he's definitely not, you know, a minicampu for him to go and praise or campaign or promote the opposition on the platform while addressing ANC members. That is just not possible. And, you know, it is not true, of course, that wherever the DA governs, they do it right. You know, that would be a blatant lie, because we all know what happened in Tshwane and what is happening currently in the Western Cape townships and informal settlements regarding service delivery backlogs. The president was specifically referring to the Auditor General's findings, in which municipalities governed by the DA quite often get clean audits than most of the ANC-led municipalities. Of course, we do have ANC municipalities, some of the ANC municipalities that also do get clean audits, you know. But the fact of the matter is that the ANC, the DA-led municipalities are in the majority as far as clean audits are concerned, and this is undisputed. I don't know why people can't read. You know, wrong is wrong and right is right, regardless of whoever does and says. To me, in conclusion, Comrade Chair, I think it's all about selective listening and or misunderstanding of the issues at stake. You know, and at worst, a deliberate distortion of the actual facts. You know, because we are already in the campaign mode. You know, people will say whatever they like, you know, to suit their own perspective. But please let us not misrepresent what the president said. The president never promoted the DA. He said people should learn, ANC councillors should learn from DA councillors. How do they get it right? In as far as, you know, the handling of books is concerned, in as far as, you know, what do we call it? Auditing is concerned, and nothing else. It's nothing to do with service delivered by the DA. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Comrade Skobela. Comrade Besani, over to you.
Thank you very much, comrades, for the inputs. They are quite informative, and I love the energy with which they were raised. I think comrades have made comments, a demonstration that they've made inputs rather, a demonstration that they are alive to the situation on the ground. You know, the 80s were marked by organs of people's power. So the liberation movement was everywhere. It was not only confined to its own structures. That is, we talk about the liberation movement, because we use the organs of people's power. In other words, we existed alongside the people. When women were having meetings on a monthly basis, there was semblance of organization in those meetings. That is why, again, it was very easy, especially when the UDF was formed, to be able to be constituted by close to about 600 organizations. You know, I'm not saying easy because it was nice and so on. I'm saying in terms of the easy to just trying to characterize how organized society was and how entrenched was the liberation movement. Now, obviously, the formation of SANCO, in my view, was somehow expected to be kept to capture those kind of audiences and platforms. And what has developed is that these structures somehow they tend to exist in the same form the ANC exists, and they are more like a duplication, what Comrade Magoma calls a revolutionary watchdog. But if the watchdog is revolutionary, I think in that way there's nothing wrong. But I think the issue is that there's so much duplication that we lose touch. I mean, the fact that it showed, I want to agree with him that there's a weakness in how we are organized. I think that's the point he was trying to highlight. There's a weakness in how we are organized. We're organized in such a way that there's just duplication of weaknesses and strengths. If, for instance, we're entrenched into societal platforms and organizations, would be able to, where the ANC is unable to reach, SANCO would be able to bring the ANC closer to those kind of platforms. Or where ANC, SANCO, would be able to ensure that the ANC accesses those platforms. Now, that is a weakness that we find, and I to some extent, I agree that there are those kind of weaknesses of duplications, and that kind of duplicity is not making the alliance strong. But with regard to the relevance, actually, that weakness does not mean SANCO is not relevant. SANCO remains relevant. What we need to do is to support SANCO in such a way that SANCO is able to access, to reach into areas where the ANC is unable to. Now, if the people are going to use these structures for them to acquire positions, therefore, that's why sometimes, most of the time, the weaknesses of SANCO are weaknesses of the ANC, even in other alliance partners, because it is the same people just recycling themselves in some instances, as you have said. So it's not helpful. But it could be helpful if, for instance, if you go to an SGB or you go to a community organization, you find members of the ANC, the members of SANCO, they are relatable. That would be helpful. But if these structures are only used for purposes of positions within the alliance structures, that's where it becomes unhelpful. But the relevance, for me, they are still relevant. We need to reach areas that every corner of society. And for me, you have highlighted, Comrade Magoma has highlighted the weakness that we have, our mode and model of organizing. It doesn't reinforce the fact that we need to be steeped into society and so on. It actually highlights the bigger problem of being too obsessed with ourselves as leaders, whether in the ANC or in the alliance. So, but the relevance, I think we still need to be a movement. You know, the most important thing about the alliance is that it makes the ANC a movement. The existence of the alliance makes the ANC a movement than just an organization that exists on its own. So it makes us a movement because we're able to access corners that are not easy for one organization to reach out. So I just want to, in summary there, to say SANCO is still relevant, but the challenges that you have stated are there. So our mode of organizing has got to improve, has got to change. I think what has happened with legacy foundations was quite unfortunate because the ANC has been, and through government, of course, has been engaging with them. Those problems that were raised, I hold a strong view. It's problems that could have been handled. So I agree with you that it wasn't. I still don't agree that it was wise for Legacy Foundation to take such a hardline position. But anyway, if you look at the national dialogue itself, government said, look, the president has a mandate constitutionally to preside over such initiatives, you know, even constitutionally has a mandate. So as a matter of principle, there was no way that government could not be part and parcel of that. But there was an acknowledgement that there's so much trust deficit that you needed to make sure that the role of the people of civil society is very dominant. So government, even the ANC, did not have a problem with that. And so that is why it made sure that there's broad participation in it. So the issue of civic-led vis-a-vis government-led was acknowledged, but it was not. But it was acknowledged in such a way that there was no way that government could not get involved, but that to address a reality of trust deficit, you needed to have, because it's a dialogue, you needed to have people being at the heart of it. So I think it's a problem that could have been resolved, and it can still. It's not something that is insurmountable. You know, I went to KZN. I was deployed there, and there's an experience that still haunts me, or that has left still in my mind, and I like talking about it also in my presentation. Our campaign was that we need to share with people what is it that we have achieved, and so on, because the wisdom was that there was too much bombardment of a wrong narrative that since the past 30 years, the ANC has done nothing. Now, when I was doing the door-to-door, I think it's in the area of Port Shepstone, I went into one house and there was an old man of about 65 years. And I knocked and he said to me, hey, do you come from the ANC? I said, yes. And I said, okay, no, it's good that you have come and visited me. But anyway, I know what you are going to tell me. He says, I know you're going to tell me that this house that I live in has been built by the ANC government. And he says, you'd be right. You are right. I live in a house that has been built by the ANC. And he says, I know you're going to tell me that my kids who have finished school, they were schooled by the ANC government up until university level. You are right, indeed. They have been. The water, indeed, you would be right. You are right. All this water, even the pension that I get now, the old age pension that I get now, it's an ANC government. All those things, you are right. But then he says, but let me tell you, even though you are right with that, I'm not going to vote for you because I've not worked for the past 17 years. And then my kids that you have educated have completed their studies, but for the past 5 years, they have not been employed. Now I'm looking for something different because I don't want my kids to wait for you the same way I did wait for you. So I need something that can change my life, that can change lives of my kids and so on, despite the fact that you have done all these things for me. Now, I think that for me, that is at the heart of the challenge we are faced today. And that includes what somebody spoke about, service delivery. You know, that commentary on service delivery. We're faced with serious issues of service delivery, and others are systemic, others are man-made, most of them. We could have conducted ourselves better. And when we deal with service delivery, we also have to look, we can deliver as much services that we want. And from the example that I shared with you, it's very clear that part of that should include creation of jobs, because people want to live their lives, they want to improve their lives, and they, through employment, they'll be able to do all kinds of things they wish to do for themselves. So that's the bigger challenge that we have. Service delivery, of course, because infrastructure is depleting and so on, we have to do a lot of it. I was listening on radio the other day, I think it's Joburg or Tshwane, I forgot, where they say they have infrastructure for water of about 17,000 kilometers, but every year they're able to do about 17 kilometers or 11 kilometers. That tells you of the scale of service delivery. But I think we do have plans. We need, you know what we were talking about, consequence management. The problem has been that we have not been acting on time or in time to act against underperformance. That is why now we have to act. And we have to act with speed. And where we find any form of malfeasance and poor performance, we have to act. And that's where I think we've failed ourselves. Another issue I want to comment on, comrades, it's foundational course. It's a way of improving the organizational software, so that people can internalize organizational software. The hardware must internalize organizational software. I think it's Comrade Lesejo, in one meeting he was saying, foundational course is like people have to go through a kettle dipping. It's like a kettle dipping. And I said, yeah, he's right. Everybody must go through it. But the purpose of kettle dipping is to remove the ticks on the kettle. So the expectation is that with these courses, with this kind of training, ticks of factionalism should be dislodged. Now, it takes a high level of or some form of political consciousness to be able to behave differently once you have gone to a course. Now, on their own in J, it's like on their own J, those courses are not going to change anything. Just like people go to church, and it is expected that once they go to church, there'll be change in behavior. That's why we have to preach, the commissariat has to preach from time to time so that there's change in behavior. But people can make choices, they make some form of choices, not because the education they get is bad. Political education has been put in place so that there's change in behavior. In other words, change in behavior does not come automatically. And I want to argue that foundation caused the fact that they are mandatory, that is constitutional. It is constitutional to demand for political education, especially foundational, to mandatory. If you look at our constitution, when it defines a member in good standing or a branch in good standing, it makes two aspects. If you go to the definitions, it says a branch or a member, if I'm not forgetting a branch, I'm not sure it refers to a member or a branch, but a branch or a member in good standing. It talks about the full payment of the membership fee. You need to have paid in full your membership, but it also says you must also abide by the obligations. You know, you must comply with the obligations stated in the Constitution. And that is where that's how the NEC put in place, inserted this notion of branch functionality. So the point is that we can educate you, but when we embark on this foundational course, it's part and parcel of complying with the Constitution. But it is not automatic that you are going to change and so on. It takes an individual, just like any student who gets taught in a class, any learner who gets taught in a class, if he does not internalize the lessons and so on, he's bound to fail, even though they have been taught, given same time with others in the class. Our position on the SACP, the ANC respects the SACP because the SACP has a right, has got its own constitution, and has a right to take its own decisions. We respect them. But based on the fact that we have an alliance, the ANC believes that it must continue to pursue the SACP, not to execute this line. And so at this point in time, we have to wait for the decision to be taken on how we treat the membership, this issue rather of the SACP. We have seen a number of provinces of the party not really define the SACP, but saying, look, for those who are contesting the by-elections, they are actually not implementing the Congress resolution because the Congress resolution is not about the by-elections. So in other words, there's still a debate, even though there's a decision, there's a debate within the party on how to post and so on. Even the ANC has not gotten tired to engage the party. So those conversations are underway. And very soon, a position will be outlined. So the ANC believes that it must become a bigger brother and continue to engage. It must never lose hope, because if there's anything that we want, we do not want. If there's anything that we do not want as the ANC, is to lose the South African Communist Party. We have produced a document that outlines the importance of the party in the liberation struggle, you know, especially our situation. So, and I hope comrades have that document, because it explains in detail why it is important for the party to become part and parcel of the alliance and so on. There's quite a very interesting historical account, you know, on that particular document. So we need the SACP. We will outline the position later. So our position now is that we need to leave the officials, the NEC, to engage, and very soon a directive will be provided. Look, the decline of clearly there's a decline of the ANC in terms of its misfortunes, the electoral fortunes rather. Whether it is because of voter turnout and so on, I think we know why. I think our view is that people still believe in the ANC, and That is why they don't go to the polls. So it is up to us. We need to turn the corner now. You know, one of the definitions of renewal, if you look at our resolutions, the definition of our view of renewal as the ANC, we say renewal is about the resilience of the organization. And we also make other elements, we put other elements there, but I just want to make emphasis to this notion of resilience. And if you look, once the ANC says renewal is about enhancing our resilience, renewal is about enhancing our resilience. Now, the definition of renewal, the basic definition of renewal is that renewal, the basic definition of resilience, resilience is the ability to spring back into shape. So if you take a sponge, you put it in your hand and you clench a fist with a sponge in your hand, the sponge loses shape. But when you release your hand, your clenched fist, when you release your hand, the sponge springs back into its original shape. So we are in that situation where we cannot afford to be complacent. We've got to spring back into shape. We are not in good position now. We've got to spring back into shape. And part of being out of shape is this decline. And people expect solutions from the ANC. Now, all those things that we're talking about, we always decry this. We're being criticized for all kinds of things. Now, we have to veer away from those things. We've got to eliminate them. And we know them. But for us to veer away from those things, it needs leadership. Like I agree with some of you comrades who say, part of the problem is us at a leadership level. It is us who manipulate the membership systems and so on. And now, when members report these things to us, it's like they report challenges. It's like a reporter Tokolosi Womongayon. Now, leadership, that's why I was talking about leadership and leaders in position. Those who occupy leadership positions, they must exercise leadership. Leadership does not mean imposing things on people. Leadership is about a particular conduct. That's what I was trying to emphasize. And for as long as those in leadership positions act unethically, this organization will not change. So we're at a moment where we have no choice but to change. And to change in such a way that we build the ANC. Maybe I should stop there, Comrade Sten, so that there's a second round, or because I can see even time is running out. Thanks.
Yeah, we are only left with a few minutes. I'm not sure if there is a really pressing question. I see the comrades some of the comrades have lowered their hands. Comrade Lucky, Emmanuel Machaga, and Sia. I don't think Sia is there, and I see the hand of the France. Perhaps maybe if there is a compelling question that we need to respond to, let me see the hands, comrades. We just have 5 minutes left. I don't see.
Yes,
I see.
Comrade
I see France.
Comrade Betty.
Yeah, Betty.
Comrade Spielman. I think let's take these 3, 1 minute, 1 minute, Chair, and then we can see
Nkosinati. I'll
what
start
comes
with
up.
Comrade Nkosinjani. He was the first. I'm giving you 30 seconds, comrades, or 45 seconds to ask your question each, and I'll intervene if you go beyond that. so that we can also have an opportunity to respond. Start Comrade Ngosi Nati, Comrade Betty, and then Comrade Franz.
No, thank you very much, Chair. Chair, I'm not going to greet, I'll just say protocol observed. My question to Comrade Besani, before that, I wanted also perhaps to give my understanding on what the President have said to the roll call councillors. Chair, I think all of us will understand that the AG, when it audits in two folds. One of the folds, the financial compliance and the transformative compliance. So I think the President in that regard was trying to say in terms of the finance compliance, councillors of the ANC, they are lacking that understanding. But when it's come to transformative compliance, I think the ANC is doing the best. I think that was my understanding what the President was saying when he's saying must go and learn a few things from the DA. Not necessary to say the DA is the best or whatever, undermining or criticizing the ANC councillors. But my question to Nsundu, Chair, is this. Chair, I think you are below 40%. But what I like, most people, they say we won't vote for any party, but the ANC must correct its mistakes. Now, the question is, how are we going to correct our mistakes as the ANC to bring back that trust from the community? Thank you very much, Chair.
Okay, Comrade Franz, you have 30 seconds as well.
Okay, no, thanks, Chair, and all protocol observed. You know, point 1 or verse 1 of Through the Eye of the Needle says, to be an ANC leader, you must have a track record appreciated both by society and the ANC. And the decline of the ANC is precisely because of this, that particularly at the branch level, you have a leadership that is burdened with a questionable character, and I think until we come back to this question to say that someone needs to monitor this, that when France becomes a leader of the ANC, does he have the track record both appreciated by the society and the ANC, and that will, I mean, and that is what will give back the credibility and that status of leader of society. But until that, I think we are going to keep on declining. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, Comrade Betty.
Thank you, Chair, and greetings to the comrades on the platform. We Betty Kihakilo from Northwest. Comrade Chair, we are facing a very serious challenge. And our leadership, they do not do what they preach. Each and everywhere where you go, the meetings and whatever, they will preach unity, but there is no unity. We still have this problem of factionalism. I think one of the comrades spoke about it, the issue of factionalism, and until we address it, then we will get ANC into order. Most of our councillors, they were not even ANC members, but all of a sudden they were councillors, and now everything is falling apart. But we need to go back to the roots and decide as to who should be a councillor, not just to follow the factions, what is happening in our provinces. Chairperson, once we relook into that issue of factionalism, everything will come apart. Comrades, they don't understand the danger the ANC is facing. They are just concentrating on what they are benefiting. But if all of us can just concentrate on what ANC did for this government, and then we will achieve all what we want to do. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Comrade Besani.
No, thanks for the input, Chair. Maybe let me try. I'll make an attempt just to respond to one question.
Comrade,
Can I come in with my
no,
question, Comrade?
No, Comrade Bugaba, wait. Is Comrade Besani on the platform?
Thank you, Chair.
All right.
Thanks, Comrade Sten. Comrades, one thing what we must do to correct our mistake, one, we must appreciate that there are no shortcuts to build an organization that is formidable. And there are no shortcuts. That's the most unfortunate thing. All of us must go on the ground and work with the people. And I can share with you my experience, and I found it takes time. Like, I come from a branch as an NEC member, and I live in that branch. It's not easy. And from 2022, when we were going to conference, I realized there's no ANC here. We have 8 branches that are just ready for conferences. Now, if you are a member of the ANC, especially if you are a leader of the ANC, you don't know the people in your streets, how many houses do you have, and how many people in your street you live with. You must know you are not capable of building a branch. We must go and build branches, and the best way of building branches is working with people. Even today, my branch is not perfect, but I can tell you how many streets I have there in my branch. I know how many people live in my street. How many houses are there? How many people live in my street? How many pensioners are there? Who are the people who have a sugar diabetes in my street? How many widows and widowers are in my street? And how many kids are not at crash? And what did we do to make sure that at least they can attend the crash and so on? And in broader community, I know how many matriculants are there for the last 3 years. And the camps were involved. And that is one way we're going to build the branches of the ANC, by working with people. The biggest problem we have now is that we have structures that master the QR code, the verification. We're just managing membership forms and the membership system. We're not building branches that are steeped in the society. So for me, the starting point is to work with the people. And in earnest, and that is a very difficult task, because it means you have to work every day with the people. You have other responsibilities, you have a family, and there's no time. We have to make time to work with the people. We can make the ANC much more better on a daily basis, because renewal is exactly about that. If we can go to that, to build organs of people's power, you have to work with people. If you are a leader of the ANC, you don't know how many organizations are in your ward, in your branch, how many schools are there, how many learners are there, what kind of challenges they are facing. You are not going to solve, I'm not saying you are going to solve all their problems, but you need to have a sense of knowledge of the situation, the conditions of the people, so that you are able to lead them. You can't be a leader of society by merely being a chairperson of a branch, so we need to be steeped. There are no shortcuts, unfortunately, to build an organization. And I think if we want to go, and for me, that is through the eye of the needle. That we need to go through that tight space and be able to find presence there. That's what will help the ANC. Otherwise, this ANC that deals with palace politics and so on, no factionalism will solve itself. Part of the problem is that we're factional because we don't have programs. Comrades, when we have programs, we're able to know one another. We're able to even know that who's good in what, who's not strong in what point. Because some of the differences that we have, they are simply because we don't know one another in the same branch. We need to do the basics right. The fundamentals have got to be in place. And once those fundamentals are in place, we'll be able to correct many mistakes that we have. Thank you very much, comrades.
Thank you, Comrade Besani. It's now 9:05, and I think, comrades, I will close this particular session. But equally, I would like to express my words of appreciation, Comrade Besani, for coming. It has been a great moment, actually, to engage and participate in this particular lesson. And I think most of us, we have learned a lot through the eye of the nettle. It was a topic that we had was very clear that how do we then begin to choose the best cadres to lead the local government. We're sitting here today looking forward to 2026, and we believed very strongly that this kind of a topic at this time that we're in is very relevant in dealing with the whole issue of the leadership, it being the region, it being in the branches. We know that at some point will be elections or processes, elective processes with the province and national and so forth. So it's important, comrades, that there's supposed to be a revival in terms of the implementation of this through the eye of the nettle as a position of the ANC in terms of how we elect. And of course, it is our position in the Kinyabela that obviously the drop of electoral fortunes is central around the very message that is being indicated in the through the eye of the nettle as a position of the ANC in terms of how we move forward, given the question of the leadership, both in the branches and both in the local government and any other spheres of government. So thank you very much for coming and engaging us on this, for taking time, your own time, to speak to us in this particular region of Tshwane. And with those few words, comrades, and those who participate in asking clarifying questions and also making an input, we appreciate as a Tshwane region and King Yabela Matlangu Montana branch. We my comrades. Thank you very much. Perhaps maybe Comrade Besani, just a few words that you might want to say before we part.
No, thanks for the invitation and thanks for the inputs. I was also enriched. I know that comrades like highly ideological debates. I deliberately avoided that so that we become more practical, to accentuate the notion that people don't eat ideas. We must deal with things that are obtained in our realities. But thank you. It was quite an enriching session. I learned a lot myself, and thanks for the invitation. I hope it's not the last time. Thank you.
No, definitely it's not the last time, Comrade Besani. There is a lot of work in building the ANC as far as the renewal question is concerned. All of us, I think the question that we've heard, the comments, they all cry towards rebuilding the African National Congress. Thank you very much, everyone who was here, and good night.
Thanks, Chairman. Good night.
Good night, comrades.
Night.
Good night,
Thank you. Good night, leadership.
Sure. Bye.
Amandla.
Good night, everyone.
Yes.
Night. Mata.